Hello, everyone, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're diving into an intense and emotional story that takes place right at home, where danger hides behind a smile. Tu Tieu, still recovering from a life-threatening accident and pregnant, now faces a chilling betrayal from someone closest to Yuri, his own mother. What begins as a quiet return home quickly spirals into a web of deception, heartbreak, and an attempt to harm her unborn child. Will love and strength be enough to protect what matters most? Stick with us to find out. And if you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming episodes. The sound of glass shattering broke the silence. Tu Tieu stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, one hand pressed to her stomach, the other gripping the counter for support. Across the room, Uri's mother stared at her, wide-eyed, unblinking, like she hadn't meant to do it, but she had. Moments earlier, Tu Tieu had slipped, hard, her back slamming against the corner of the table. She gasped as pain shot up through her spine, curling into her abdomen. She knew what this was. It wasn't just a fall, it was an attack. It had started days earlier. Yuri had brought her home from the hospital after the doctors confirmed her condition had stabilized. He was overjoyed. She was still weak, but every heartbeat from the baby gave her strength. They had decided to take it day by day. Uri's mother, however, had other plans. Uri had begged his mother to be patient, to try. So she tried. At least that's what she made him believe. She brought soup, helped change the bed sheets, even offered to make Tu Tieu her special herbal tea. Tu Tieu, though still fragile, felt something was off. The kindness felt hollow, measured. And then there were the pills. One evening, Uri's mother placed a small container of vitamins on the table. "For the baby," she said with a tight smile. "Stronger body, easier labor." Tu Tieu looked down. The label was foreign, no branding, just a white bottle with faded letters. She didn't take them, but she didn't say anything either. A few nights later, when Uri wasn't home, things escalated. Tu Tieu walked slowly down the hallway, one hand pressed to her belly, humming softly. She heard a voice behind her. "You don't belong here." It was Uri's mother. Tu Tieu turned slowly. "I never asked to be here," she replied softly. Uri is blinded by guilt and hormones. Once the baby is gone, he'll come to his senses. Tu Tieu's blood ran cold. "You don't mean that," she whispered. The older woman stepped closer. "You think love is enough to erase where you came from? You think carrying his child earns you a seat in this family? You're nothing. And that baby?" She stopped, eyes burning. "That baby is a mistake." That's when she pushed her. It wasn't hard, just enough. Tu Tieu lost her balance and fell against the kitchen table, pain exploding through her body as the world spun around her. Back in the present, Tu Tieu gasped as another cramp seized her. Uri came through the door seconds later, dropping everything when he saw her on the ground. "Tieu?" He rushed over, lifting her gently. She couldn't speak. She just clutched her belly, eyes wide with fear. Uri turned to his mother. "What happened?" I don't know," she said quickly. "She slipped. The floor was wet." But Uri's eyes darted to the dry tile. No water, no spill, just broken trust. At the hospital, the atmosphere was tense. Tu Tieu was rushed in for emergency scans. Uri waited outside, pacing, hands trembling. He couldn't stop replaying the moment in his head. Tu Tieu's face twisted in pain, her breath short, her fingers grasping for him. He thought they were past the worst. But now, they were right back on the edge. An hour passed. The doctor came out with guarded eyes. She's stable, and so is the baby, for now. But this stress can't continue. She needs absolute rest. Uri exhaled sharply, his knees nearly giving out. He went into the room quietly. Tu Tieu was awake, her face pale, an IV in her hand. When she saw him, she tried to speak, but he sat beside her and said it first. "I know." Her eyes filled with tears. "She pushed me," she said. "I didn't slip. She wanted me to lose the baby." Uri closed his eyes. The rage inside him burned so hot, it scared him. "You don't need to prove anything," he said. "I believe you." That night, Uri didn't go home. He stayed beside Tu Tieu, holding her hand, whispering soft reassurances as she drifted in and out of sleep. When the nurse came in to check on her vitals, Uri stood up and stepped into the hallway. He called his mother. She answered after a few rings. "Uri, how is she?" He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just said, "I know what you did." Silence. Then, "Uri, you're overreacting. She fell." "No, you pushed her, and I let you into our lives thinking you'd change. You almost killed her. You almost killed my child." His voice shook, not with weakness, but finality. "You're not welcome near her, or the baby, ever again." She tried to protest, but Uri had already ended the call. Back in the hospital room, Tu Tieu stirred. Uri leaned in. "Hey," he said gently. She opened her eyes slowly. "The baby?" she asked. "We're okay," he said, brushing her hair back. "You're both okay. And I'm here. Always." Tu Tieu exhaled shakily. "I thought I was going to lose everything." Uri took her hand and placed it over her belly. "You didn't. Not today. Not ever. If I can help it." Outside, the sky had turned dark. But inside, despite everything they'd endured, there was still life, still a heartbeat, still hope. And that, for now, was enough. The following morning, Uri came back to the house to pack up Tu Tieu's things. He had made up his mind. She wasn't going to stay another day in that house. Not after what happened. Not after the woman he trusted nearly destroyed everything. He opened the bedroom door and froze. His mother was inside, holding Tu Tieu's hospital file in her hands, reading through it, invading her privacy. Again, Uri's voice cut like a knife. "Put it down!" She flinched. "Uri, I was just..." "No, no more excuses." He walked in and snatched the file from her hands. "You don't get to touch her. You don't get to touch our child." His mother's eyes welled with tears, but Uri didn't soften. "I know what you did," he continued. "You've hated her since day one, but trying to kill her? To end your own grandchild's life? That's evil." "She's using you," his mother snapped. "She's weak and manipulative. That child is a chain around your neck, Uri." Uri stepped closer, voice low but burning. "That chain is my child, and she..." He pointed toward the door, toward the memory of Tu Tieu lying unconscious. "Is the woman I love. You tried to erase both of them in one push." Later that day, Uri returned to the hospital. Tu Tieu was awake, propped up in bed, her hands resting protectively on her belly. Her skin was pale, but there was color returning to her lips. He walked in slowly, carrying a small bag. "I brought your favorite pajamas," he said softly. Tu Tieu looked at him for a moment, and then her lips trembled. She burst into tears. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I thought I lost everything." Uri sat beside her. "You didn't," he said, gripping her hand. "She didn't win." Tu Tieu looked down at her stomach. still feel him, she said. The baby. He's still with me. Uri smiled. Of course he is. He's stubborn, just like his mother. That night, the doctor gave them the results from the latest scan. The baby's heartbeat was strong. The fall had caused some trauma, but there were no signs of internal bleeding or miscarriage. He's holding on, the doctor said with a warm smile. But you need to remain on full bed rest from now until delivery. Uri nodded quickly. I'll take care of everything. Tu Tieu looked at him, suddenly anxious. Uri, where will I go? I can't go back there. I can't. You're coming with me, he said immediately. To the apartment. I already moved your stuff. She stared at him, stunned. But your job, your mom. My job understands? And my mother won't be near us again. Weeks passed. Uri worked remotely, barely leaving Tu Tieu's side. He cooked, cleaned, and learned how to take blood pressure and recognize warning signs. He became her nurse, her partner, her protector. But every now and then, he'd catch her staring blankly at the window. Haunted, one night, he sat beside her and asked, "What's going on in that mind of yours?" She hesitated. "I keep hearing her voice," she said. "What she said when she pushed me. That the baby is a mistake. That I don't belong." Uri's jaw clenched. She doesn't get to define our family. This child is not a mistake. He leaned down and kissed her belly. He's a miracle. But trauma doesn't leave so easily. The nightmares started a few days later. Tu Tieu would wake up crying, gripping her stomach, gasping like she couldn't breathe. Uri would hold her, rub her back, whisper that she was safe now. One night, after a particularly brutal nightmare, she finally spoke. "Promise me something," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Anything. If something happens to me." "Don't," he interrupted, instantly. "No, listen," she said firmly. "If something happens, keep her safe." Uri blinked. "Her?" Tu Tieu smiled weakly. "I know we said boy, but I think she's a girl. She kicks like she's picking a fight." Uri laughed, and then tears filled his eyes. "I promise. I will protect her. And you, no matter what." At her next appointment, the doctor confirmed it. A baby girl. Tu Tieu cried quietly, gripping at Uri's hand as she saw the tiny image on the monitor. "She's beautiful," she whispered. Uri smiled through tears. "She's ours." But just as things began to feel calm, something unexpected happened. Uri received a legal notice, custody petition, filed by his own mother. She was claiming that Tu Tieu was mentally unstable and unfit to raise a child, and that Uri had been manipulated into isolating himself from family. Uri crushed the paper in his hand. "She won't stop," he said, pacing the apartment. "She won't stop until she gets what she wants." Tu Tieu sat frozen on the couch, her breath shallow. "I can't do this again, Uri. I can't fight her anymore." He knelt in front of her. "Then let me fight for you." Uri hired a lawyer. He submitted hospital records, doctor testimony, and even security footage from their home that caught part of the incident, enough to prove his mother had been deceptive. The lawyer assured them, "She has no legal grounds. This is retaliation." Uri turned to Tu Tieu that night. "I want to make this official," he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" He pulled out the same ring he had once placed on her finger in a hospital bed. "Let's get married. For real. No more waiting." Tu Tieu looked at him, exhausted, scared, broken, but still full of love. And she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." That night, as the city lights glowed outside the apartment window, Tu Tieu lay curled against Uri's chest, her hand resting on her belly. The storm wasn't over, but they had survived every wave so far. The baby inside her kicked hard, strong, defiant, alive. Uri kissed her forehead. "We're going to be okay," he said. And for the first time in a long time, Tu Tieu believed him. After returning home from the hospital, Tu Tieu, still pregnant and weak, faces an even greater threat: Uri's mother. Pretending to care, she secretly plots to cause a miscarriage, using both psychological manipulation and physical harm. One day, she pushes Tu Tieu during an argument, causing her to collapse in pain. Uri rushes her to the hospital, devastated. Thankfully, both Tu Tieu and the baby survive, but the trauma runs deep. Uri confronts his mother and cuts her out of their lives. As Tu Tieu recovers, the emotional scars remain. Just as things start to stabilize, they're hit with a new shock. Uri's mother files a custody petition, accusing Tu Tieu of being unfit. Uri stands by her side, fighting back with legal action and love. Together, they protect their unborn daughter, proving that even in darkness, loyalty and love can be stronger than blood.